What if the life you built with so much effort is the very thing draining your spirit? If you've been feeling the ache beneath your achievements, you're not alone. Welcome back to Unsubscribe, Episode 2, The Breakthrough. I'm Premal Badiani, integration therapist and transformation coach, and a fellow traveler on this path to becoming whole. If you've missed Episode 1, pause here and go listen. We laid the groundwork with a big question. What happens when success no longer feels like success? What if the relentless chase is no longer fulfilling or even sustainable? Today, we step into the space after the unraveling, the moment where awareness begins to take root. This is the episode where we talk about realignment.
And I'm Bettina Floyd, a fellow traveler on this journey, exploring ways to connect with my true self. So let's just stop here and really think about this. How can someone tell if they're misaligned? Because honestly, I didn't know anything was wrong until I hit the wall. And I've hit that wall plenty of times before, but this time it felt like the wall was hitting me back. Every time I got up, every time I tried to get up, I just hit the wall. So what are those signs? How do we even know we're off track before it gets to that point?
Yeah, and that image of the wall hitting you back, Bettina, that is real. And it's such a good question to start because misalignment rarely shows up with flashing neon signs.
I wish it did.
It tends to show, yeah, I know, right? And it tends to show up quietly, like background noise you've gotten used to. And sometimes it's this exhaustion that sleep cannot fix, or this subtle sense of something's off, like something's off. You're doing all the right things, but life starts to happen to you instead of through you. And like you're starring in this movie you don't even remember auditioning for. And to be honest, before the full burnout or breakdown, there's often this in between, the foggy middle that's mostly ignored, where you're not exactly falling apart, but you're definitely not thriving. Yeah, and see, that's the whisper. That's where realignment wants to begin. That's the space.
That was me for years. I feel like you just described my past situation. I was constantly doing, achieving, showing up, but underneath it all, I just felt empty. And I kept reaching and reaching and reaching for more. But what I was reaching for wasn't actually fulfilling me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I only felt proud of my accomplishments for a moment. I would do something and a high would last just for a little bit. It was always this voice playing in the back of my head, saying I wasn't enough, saying all the things I was doing, it just wasn't enough. And then I'd push myself some more to try to reach the next thing, just going and going and going like a little hamster.
No, and I hear you, because that not enough voice, I know her very well as well. I mean, she's lived rent-free in my mind. I mean, and I was always, my mind used to play these tricks where I started to believe that laziness, that feeling of rest was laziness, and that unless I was producing something, I was wasting time, But here's the thing. Misalignment mimics burnout,
right,
which I realized a lot later. And we keep patching it with productivity. And like it's like we need to do more to kind of feel whole, right? But the truth is, we're betraying ourselves in this process. Like, those one quiet yes when we really mean no, one skipped boundary, one suppressed truth at a time. And like in my case, it was thousands of I am fines.
Right. Because we keep saying, I'm okay, and just keep going around and around in circles.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just so used to that,
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this, Prim, but I remember sitting in your office and realizing I had an issue. And it wasn't really what I thought it was. It went much deeper.
Oh, yeah.
It was more than just recognizing that my career had really become my identity. It was the fact that if I took all of that away, I had no idea who I was outside of what I did. And that realization, it was terrifying. It was so terrifying to acknowledge that. But at the same time, when I had that moment, somehow it felt really freeing.
And I do remember our conversation, and that's when we had discussed that's the crack in the mask. And instead of being tempted to fix it or patch it up, that realization that you had, that you needed to look through it. And it's suddenly realizing that your entire personality has been crowdsourced from LinkedIn and childhood praises. And this is for a lot of us, Yeah, and you look around and think, wait, whose life is this? And why doesn't it feel like I'm even in it? And for a lot of us, that realization is massive. It's the moment where the old stories start to fall apart. And as terrifying as that is, it's also the moment where the real story wants to begin.
Right. How did I get here?
Yeah. And you see, emotions are like emails from our soul. You can ignore them, but they will keep on showing up. And they'll get louder and more dramatic and show up in all caps if you don't open them.
Yeah, I can see that now.
Yeah.
But back then, I used to feel so guilty about my sadness. Like, I've accomplished some really good things. So why do I still feel so heavy and so sensitive? Now I see that the sadness was actually trying to show me something. It was like that invitation you were speaking of. It was speaking something deeper. It was trying to show me something deeper, a part of me that I hadn't been listening to.
Yeah, and exactly. And that guilt, you see, that's the side effect of emotional gaslighting. And most of us internalize that without even realizing. Because, let's be honest, we've been conditioned to treat sadness as a sign of failure instead of this sacred alert that your nervous system is bringing in front of you, right? Sadness is not a glitch in the system. It's part of our intelligence and it's part of our being. It doesn't mean something's wrong with us. It just means that something matters very deeply.
But why do you think we don't catch this earlier? Why don't we recognize misalignment until it's completely burning us out?
Well, because, let's be honest, discomfort is bad PR for success, right? We just don't talk about it. We are raised to function, not to feel. Our culture for decades and centuries has celebrated the power through it energy.
Right.
We reward productivity over presence. So much so that we learn to override, to numb, to hustle, even when we know and our nervous system knows and it's begging for a timeout. And honestly, if you think about it, our culture doesn't reward introspection at all until we're at a breaking point.
That is so true. That is so true. We don't even feel like we deserve to pause and look inward until we completely crack. And then suddenly it's acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just goes to show how in tune we are with the outside world and how out of tune we can be with ourselves. And I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about performance. Can you talk more about the version of ourselves we end up performing and what really starts to happen when that performance begins to crack?
Yeah, sure. The performance self is who we become to be enough. And that's what really that is. And to tell you the truth, it just doesn't show up one fine day. It starts young. We've been conditioned to be good, to be the overachievers, the fixers, the strong ones. And after a while, we really forget that it is all a performance. It's like we all become these characters in our own show, the bold and the burnout. And eventually, believe it or not, the soul does get tired.
Right.
That curated version of us might be polished and very impressive, but it's exhausting to maintain. It's like wearing a bodysuit on our soul. And when those cracks appear, it's tempting to double down. And we all do this. But let's be honest. That's when the real invitation also shows up. What would it look like to stop performing and start living?
Right.
Yeah,
and that listening part, the stop performing and start listening, like that changed everything for me. Once I gave myself permission to feel instead of fix, I started hearing truths I hadn't let surface in years. And that all came from just pausing and listening, really listening to what was really in there. And I had things buried underneath busyness, productivity, and expectations. And suddenly, out the blue, they had a voice. And it wasn't always easy to hear those truths, but it was honest. It was honest and it was needed. And sitting in that silence showed me where I was hurting, what I had been avoiding, and what I actually needed. It was in that quiet, in that stillness, that I finally started to come home to myself.
Yeah, and I mean, isn't that just very unconventional and funny at the same time? Like the very quietness that we are not used to, and we think it's the discomfort, and that's where it all starts to shape. And also realizing that that's the shift, all of that clarity that we've been talking about, that's the real shift. And in that moment, we move from judgment to curiosity,
Right.
and instead of asking what's wrong with me, we ask, what is this feeling trying to show me?
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And that's actually the foundation of realignment. When you are ready to finally sit in that discomfort and that quietness, and you're finally open to listen, and actually giving it a thought, and sitting with what is arising in that moment, not with a goal of solving it, but with the intention of understanding it.
Right. Wow. I love that. I love that you said, instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask, what is this feeling trying to show me? That is so gentle. And I love that, because we can all be so critical and judgmental of ourselves.
Yeah.
But once we have that realization, once we kind of shift, what happens next? once we become aware we're misaligned, what does that realignment actually look like?
Well, that's a good question, because here's the thing. Realignment doesn't usually involve quitting your life and moving to Bali.
I would love
Though
that.
you and I both know, yeah, we would do that right away, just buy me a ticket. But but you see, it's these series of micro adjustments, not those big movements, right? But these micro adjustments. It's saying, actually, I don't want to do that thing today, right? And being comfortable saying, no, I don't have the capacity to hold this for you right now. It's never about becoming a totally new person, but it's mostly about remembering the real you before the world told you who to be. Yeah, and you see, remembering happens to all of us, but we just don't sometimes realize it. For me, for example, it happens through journaling. And that's why I've gotten used to journaling my emotions and my thoughts and just connecting with myself in the moment of self-reflection. And while for the others it's therapy or breath work or even altered state experiences. But in all of this, the key thing to remember is that no matter what the doorway, it needs to be held in a safe and intentional space, because it's never about the escape, really. It's about engagement.
Yes.
It's about engaging with your true self.
Yes. I love that. I love it. Let's go deeper into that, because what helped me find those buried parts of myself wasn't just talking it out. Like, talking is one thing, but it was through an altered state. And I'm not speaking of like a recreational experience, but like a carefully supported one.
Yeah. And funny thing, I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of listeners are, the minute they hear altered states, it's funny how our mind wants to shift to ayahuasca and psychedelics.
Yeah.
But let's be real, let's understand that the most profound altered states can come from grief, beauty, stillness, and whether we realize it or not, even just a simple long walk in the nature without your phone. Those are all profound altered states. Because here's the thing, the goal isn't to get high, really. It is to go deep.
Right, yes, to go deep. And for me, it wasn't about escaping. It was about finally feeling what I had spent years avoiding. And what came up wasn't like a cosmic vision. It was truth. It was truth that led me to the spiritual breakthrough I needed. And it wasn't the kind I can just like sit there and think my way into.
Yeah. And then I'm glad that you do realize that it was not about the escape, right? And that it was about feeling. Because people think that they need to see flying dragons or become one with the cosmic to call it a breakthrough. Again, these are all the things that we've been listening to, right? And we've been fed all this information. And but you see, the altered states don't hand you the answers wrapped in a gold foil. That's not what it's meant to do. It's not designed to do that. They remove the noises so you can finally hear the truth that's being whispered to you all along. The truth that you've been ignoring. And usually that truth is wearing sweatpants and holding a mug that says, "Don't ignore me."
Right. And for me, I thought that I had created a safe space for myself. But what I really did was build walls and boundaries that were so heavy that they held in all of my fear and shame and grief. And I had this need to be strong that I just buried under everything underneath it.
I can imagine, yeah.
But in that, and that can become a scary place. But in that moment of stillness and surrender, I finally met myself, and I realized I could operate outside of that safe bubble of torment. Really, that's what it was. I had built this bubble of torment because what I was looking for was already with me. I just didn't know how to access it. The protection, the peace, the grounding that I needed, it was all there all along. I just couldn't reach it until I gave myself permission to be still, be quiet, and just listen to yourself.
Yeah, and well, that is so strong, right? That moment, and it's such a key moment as well to finally realize that it's never been about chasing the peak, right? It's about letting those moments teach you. It's about becoming this humble human that is coachable, right? We talk about surrender, and that's what surrender means. It's about allowing these moments to actually guide you,
Right.
And that's what really the altered states do. They bring it all to surface. And with those truths also comes discomfort. You know, it's not always going to be nice and warm and fuzzy.
Right. Yeah. I experienced so much discomfort. Even when you start talking about the surrender part, like I felt my body like feeling uncomfortable. But it's so true. The discomfort is there, but you also get clarity. You get this unimaginable amount of clarity. And that clarity really outweighed any discomfort I was feeling, and it mattered more than the comfort.
Yeah.
So when I look back at things, the discomfort was just like a piece of the process, but that clarity meant so much more.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you've realized this for yourself, and now that you've experienced it, you can speak from it, right? Because here's where a lot of people misunderstand the part of this process. They think that altered state is the breakthrough, right? And we think that now that there's this moment of clarity and you've learned what you needed to, and that's it, right?
Right.
But what we don't realize is that that's just the trailer. The full movie happens in your daily life. You know, on days when the dishes are piling up and your inbox is full.
Right.
But you still choose to live from what you saw in that moment of clarity. You know, choosing that discomfort, right? Because that's where the real learning is. You know, and I'll tell you this as someone who's guided so many people through these states, is that altered state is not the miracle. You know, that's really just the beginning. The true growth happens during integration.
Yeah.
Right? And that transformation happens in how you respond to what was revealed to you in those moments of clarity. Because when those experiences end, real life is still waiting. And that's the part a lot of us often skip.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, how do I not forget this? How do I not go back to sleep? And I'm so grateful to have had this process, because The experience is one thing, but then I needed that support. I needed those tools. I needed that community. And I really needed that integration.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not alone. There, a lot of my clients, in those moments of clarity, they have this conundrum as to what if they lose this vision of clarity? What if it all goes away? And how can we stay in this state? But that's exactly what we need to understand. And as much as I do want us to keep on talking about this, I think we'll run out of time in this episode. So, but we'll explore this in our next episode.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're gonna explore more, because I'm still learning how to live from that place. But one thing I do know is I don't need to chase the experience anymore. I just need to find the truth I found in it. Just continue to choose that truth I found in it all.
Yeah. The real question isn't what you saw. It's what will you do with it?
Right.
And let me tell you this. Transformation doesn't wear formal, funky clothes. It wears pajamas.
Yeah.
And it's slow, and it's quiet, and it's deeply personal. Because transformation was never supposed to be about intensity or chasing. It is about depth and integration.
And I'm still learning how to live from that place. But what I do know is I don't need to chase that experience anymore. I just need to choose the truth that I found in it all.
Yeah, and I think that's the shift from chasing to choosing. And so to all the listeners, if you've ever had a moment of deep clarity, whether through spiritual experience, deep reflection, or something you can't quite explain, and wondered how to live from that place, the next conversation is for you. We're talking about the real work, the integration, the grounding, and the rebuilding of what begins after the breakthrough. You've been listening to Unsubscribe. I am Premal Badiani. Let this episode linger. Let the questions echo. You don't have to chase clarity. You just have to create space for it. If you're curious about integration work, altered states, or what it means to come home to your full self, please visit pblifecoaching.com. You can book a free discovery call, explore resources, or simply read more about this work. And if you found value in this episode, share it, subscribe, leave us a review. The more we normalize these conversations, the more permission we create for all of us. We'll see you in the next episode.